What an amazing feeling. You've just gone by a 50-foot, picture of yourself on City Hall. 100,000 plus people are on the main drag. It's your hometown. Your brother's about 80 meters behind. You've got him back onto the points that he needs to have a chance for Jonny Brownlee to be the world champion. And now the greatest one-day racer ever, Alistair Brownlee, makes that final 200-meter run. What an amazing feeling.
Alistair Brownlee needs little introduction for listeners to the World Triathlon podcast. The only triathlete to successfully defend an Olympic title, a two-time world champion, mixed relay world champion and Commonwealth Games champion. He's also one of two men who share the Brownlee surname, credited with the relentless surge in triathlon's growth, not just in Britain, but around the world. So Alistair, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much for having me.
And how are you and where are you at the moment?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. I'm currently sat at home in Leeds with my foot up, been icing my ankle to try and get the swelling down. I had the operation on it 10 days ago, and yeah, that's my focus at the moment. Can't do really any training, but yeah, just hoping that I can get my ankle completely better so I can get training soon.
And plenty of other things to be keeping you busy in the meantime. We'll obviously talk about the book launch in a while as well. Olympic Games coming up. Did you start to feel at any point, it seems a bit strange to say, like Beijing finished 12th, 2008 Olympics. It seems strange to say that was like almost the moment your career kicked on in terms of results, because you didn't race again for almost a year after that. But from May 2009, you were putting together incredible results. Did you get a sense of, did your confidence build, and you were almost feeling a little bit invincible on some of those start lines?
Beijing, for me, I hadn't expected to even make it, and but by the time I stood on the start line, I was like, yeah, I can, win this race. And even though I had no chance of winning the race, but I went out, and afterwards, I remember thinking, yeah, I was actually racing with the very best in the world till kind of 10 minutes of the race to go. So the majority of the race, 90% of it, I was there. And I don't think it gave me self-belief. I think what it did do was just say to me how close you are, and actually motivated me to say, if you go, away and you can find that extra little bit, then, you will be there, and, you'll be able to race with the best in the world. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say it kind of kick-started my career, but it went a long way to encouraging, to motivating me, and yeah, and showing, I guess, myself, which is a sense of self-belief that, yeah, I could race with the best. And then the year later, in 2009, the first race was in Madrid, and I stood on that start line, and I didn't think I could win that race. I thought, right, I've been away for this time. I think I probably can race near the best and hopefully hang on till the end rather than blow up like I had done the year before. But yeah, completely surprised myself. Yeah, genuinely completely surprised myself. I remember the race that I won after that, the second time of the World Series. It was in Washington, D.C., in a fantastic event. And being completely surprised that I managed to win again, to be honest.
We had Richard Murray on the show a few weeks ago, and another one of the sort of great characters from the last decade and so on. And it was quite amusing, like him totally sort of prompted, talking about you and Jonny almost as one. It must have been nice to be the marked man and to have Jonny with you, and almost you two against the world.
Yeah, well, things change in sport, and things change quickly. So within that time in 2009, I went effectively from some young kid who was an underdog to the favourite in every race that I was going to stand the start line on, and in lots of ways that was the same almost for the next decade. And yeah, that changed quick, and it's something you have to learn to deal with and adapt to, and I guess people learn to deal with that in different ways. It was fantastic to go through most of that with Jonny, just on mostly a practical point of view of, yeah, we're traveling together, going to races, dealing with a lot of the same kind of stresses as well of expectation, but at the same time dealing with a level of kind of interest in triathlon that never in a million years would we have ever thought would be involved. You know, getting to the point a few years after that and the lead up into London where people are like constantly asking how things are going. You know, when was the next race? What had happened in the race the week before? You know, why were you so terrible? And you know, encouraging me to make sure I beat that Spanish guy next week. And you know, there were conversations that were just happening in the shop while you're going to buy a pint of milk. And yeah, the change from 3 or 4 years was enormous, and something we kind of had to learn to cope with. And I think doing that together was great. And then obviously being able to train hard and push each other on every day, and deal with going to races. And we were in lots of ways phenomenally lucky. We stood on the start line of 2 Olympic Games next to each other, in great shape, knowing that we couldn't have really done much more or be in a better position, and shared a quiet joke of, we better not F this up, and then got on with going out and racing.
And then even after everything that you've been through together, like to see you both at the end of the Arzachena World Cup race, Jonny had won, and like the sort of the bark of raw delight that you shared with him as well, that competitive edge is clearly not dimmed at all from either of you.
Well, yeah, we're both very competitive people, obviously, and we often joke together and interviews and whatever that when we were younger, probably just before 2009, if we were playing, a game of Monopoly or something, it would go wrong very quickly. But since then, we tend to use our competitiveness, I think, when we need to, and the rest of the time, we're pretty much our competitiveness is used up, and we're a bit more chilled about everything. So we are competitive, and I mean, it's been a long time, and for us, I think it's all in perspective of what's going on. We started racing each other around muddy fields in Leeds when we were 6, 7, 8. How long ago is that?
In terms of the rivalry between you and Jonny, then, like, how has that sort of manifested on the race course? Or have you mainly been able to sort of, I don't know, direct it towards, like you said, the Spaniards or a Richard Murray or whatever? Did it get to the point as well where there were obviously years where you were sort of battling each other directly for the world title as well?
Yeah, I think so. Most of the time, really, it was just, we want to win this race. We just want to win.
One of us, either.
Yeah, well, and I always wanted it to be me, obviously. And I thought about it like this. I wanted to win the race, and that would be like whatever, like the majority, 9 out of 10 of my happiness, and the 1 out of 10 would be if Jonny didn't come second. So the vast, completely selfish, and I wanted to win, and that is what it is. And it didn't really matter, it wasn't necessarily one like person. You just wanted to win. I said there was probably quite a long period in that where both of us or one of us saw Javier as our main competitor, and so if we were thinking in a race, it's like we're going in, it's like how we're kind of beating him, and the likelihood is that there'd be someone else, there might be someone else kind of pop up here or there, but it'd be mostly trying to beat Javier. And then things changed, and other people were the kind of main competition, like a few years later, I guess, going into Rio, but he was still always there. But it was mostly not about one person, but just trying to beat whoever.
And by his own admission, John, some of Jonny's best results have been as a result of sticking, listening to your race plan. I know, several times he's kind of mentioned that there were races where he felt maybe it was time to drop back to the pack, and you were urging him to push on. So obviously you'll be watching from the sidelines in Tokyo, as a hype man, as a wingman, you've got quite an important role to play for him, presumably. I
think yes and no. I can obviously offer a little bit of advice and support and do what I can. But at the end of the day, he's the one that's standing on that start line, and he's the one that's got to go out there and race. And so, yeah, I think it's really important. He makes those decisions about what he has to do to get there in the best possible shape. And so ultimately, he can stand there confident, knowing that he's done everything he can, and he should go out and perform.
And you did a huge amount of training together at the start of the year. Obviously, your goal was the same as his, to hit the Tokyo start line. And you started on the Leeds start line, presumably knowing that race would define whether or not you'd go to Tokyo. Were you fully fit, stood on the Leeds start line, and how is the ankle situation at the moment?
No, I wasn't very fit, stood on the Leeds start line. I had, just kind of 3 months of kind of hell leading up into that, knowing that I had this ankle problem, knowing at the same time there's nothing I kind of could have done about it really, and just doing absolutely everything I could to be in a half decent shape to try and perform, and ultimately, it didn't work out. A lot of me thought in the lead up to it that actually, I just shouldn't race. There's probably not a lot of positives that could come from racing, but I thought ultimately it's in Leeds, it's your last chance. I think give yourself the chance to, and you kind of don't know. We might get very lucky, and it might work out differently. But I knew I was always up against it, and it was going to be a challenge. But I thought, one last time, give yourself a chance and see what happens.
I was wincing for you on some of those on the run. It looked quite painful, I have to say.
It was quite painful, but by then I was just kind of jogging around to pretty much, and it was a shame. But the ankle now is, well, I had an operation on it about 10 days ago, and I'm just rehabbing it and trying to recover at the moment, so I can get back and do some training and do what I love doing.
Yeah, and there was obviously a lot of noise around the race as well afterwards and everything that went on. But Leeds as an event is down to you and Jonny, and it's become a favourite. Do you think it'll come back? Did the move to Roundhay Park possibly extend its life cycle as an event, do you think? Or are you privy to those sort of kind of conversations at the moment as well?
I really, obviously, I'm really proud in the role kind of we've played in triathlon in general in the UK, and the race in Leeds and having it in Leeds is part of that. You don't have to go back very far, even a few years, way after 2012. You think there's no chance we'll ever get a World Series race in Leeds, and then it happened. And I'm proud in the role that we played in that. Proud to be from Leeds to show off the sport of triathlon to Leeds, and proud to be a triathlete to show off the city of Leeds and the support that triathlon's got in the city. So it's been fantastic. I don't know at the moment whether it'll continue, but obviously I'll be doing everything I can to try and hope that try and support it continuing.
And I know you said after the Leeds that that was an unfortunate way to finish your career on the blue carpet with World Triathlon, but were Leeds to continue, do you think that there could be you could have more World Triathlon racing in you down the line?
No. No. That's definitely the end of my World Triathlon racing career. I think, to be honest, a lot of me over the last 3 months has asked myself why did I even try get back to the Olympics effectively. I was always up against it in terms of, I knew running quick and training for short distance triathlon was a risk factor in terms of injuries. I knew being older, slightly slower, and found it harder to do that quick work. and I knew that it was kind of stacked against me. You know, I knew that even if I got to the start line in Rio in the best possible kind of shape I could have got to, I knew it wouldn't have been where I was at Rio or in London. I knew I couldn't kind of get back to that level. But ultimately, and then obviously I got injured, and that was really frustrating and gave me months of stress. And I asked myself why had I done it? And that's the kind of power of sport and the Olympic Games. That, you know, that's the answer to that question. I did it because, yeah, I love competing in triathlon at the top of it, in Olympic distance, and I love the Olympic Games, and it's given me so much in my career over the last 10 years. But yeah, ultimately, I've also got to sit here and look and go, I've been so lucky to go to 3 Olympic Games, have a long career in the Olympic distance side of the sport, and obviously win the Olympics twice. You know, the 14-year-old me would have told you to get lost, and you were, you know, taking the mickey if you told him that. So and I'm completely happy with that decision. And at the moment, I'm just really looking forward to getting my ankle sorted and being able to race over long distance racing.
And Alex Yee, not a bad way to sort of hand the baton to him by him winning Leeds, and he's definitely got something of the sort of Brownlee roar in him as well. You could see the way that the end of that race was going for him, right? How well do you know Alex? You trained with him a fair bit.
Yeah, I know Alex pretty well, and yeah, I mean, he's a absolutely fantastic athlete, and has been for quite a few years. And it was only a matter of time till he produced a performance like that. So, and it was really, really, really cool to see that. And I completely agree. That was a real kind of breakthrough performance for him, and I think he's really put himself in a great position to be, I think, one of the people who we can really look at as a hope for the Olympic Games for winning.
Sad for all triathlon that you won't be appearing at the Games, but you will be. There's a position on the IOC Athlete Commission that you're going for. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear about the ins and outs of how that's going and what's driving you to get involved.
Yeah, that's been a really interesting role to play for me, and something that I've learned so much about. I think firstly, why did I decide to do it? I'm passionate about sport, sport triathlon, but sport in general, and the Olympic movement, and the role that the Olympic movement has to play in the future of promoting, inspiring, and motivating people to be active, and to dream, to achieve goals. I think the athlete representation is really at the heart of the Olympic movement, to be able to allow athletes to have their voice right up through the Olympic movement, and it's something that I think is really important, but fascinating, and at the same time it seems like there's going to be a challenging period for the Olympics as a whole, in the next generation or two, and it'd be an honour to play a part in that. So I've been keeping myself busy, talking to different athletes around the world where I can, just learning about the issues. Obviously, I've been a triathlete for a long time, but the Olympics consists of lots of sports, which of course is the beauty of it. And learning about the issues and what's going on in those sports has been fascinating for me.
Do you think the athlete's voice in general is something that isn't heard enough? I mean, every federation has a commission, and that obviously then feeds in, and the IOC Athlete Commission is obviously vitally important, and having those sort of roots and accountability is crucial. But from sport to sport, how have you found the athletes in terms of their feeling as to whether they are listened to and the kind of sort of issues that maybe they're facing?
Every sport is different, but I think one of the fantastic things that the IOC has done is kind of encouraged and facilitated the building of the Athlete Commission network around the world, both in terms of the Sporting Federation, IF's Athlete Commission. So World Triathlon's got its Athlete Commission that is elected by the athletes. The athletes are represented through them, obviously, to the to World Triathlon, but also other bodies like the IOC, and from a country basis, the NOC basis. So there's that network of athlete representation around the world, which is fantastic. I think as I've been speaking to people, that it's interesting. Some sports, obviously, sports are completely different. There might not at first glance be things much in common between triathlon and judo or something else, but a lot of the issues run quite deep. One of the things that you talk to a lot of athletes about is their concern that their event might be taken out of the Olympic program and replaced by another event. There's this kind of general feeling that shorter, more interesting, in brackets, better viewed events, should be replacing longer events for the future of the Olympic movement, and athletes are concerned about that. Obviously, there seems to be quite a lot of talk about the things about Rule 50 and athletes' right to protest and have their views and the right to expression, views heard at the Olympic Games, and that's something that concerns people, and that seems to be changing with the IOC slightly moving on it again in the last week or so, and various other sport specific things as well. But it's something. It's, as someone who loves sport, it's been an honour to talk to different athletes around the world and just talk about these things.
So, and is this something that you have kind of thought for a while, that staying in sport administration, as it were, is that part of a kind of long-term plan?
Yeah, it's something that I've been interested in for a long time. I think there's a few reasons. I think I kind of often say that I am massively interested and have always been in the Olympics and the Olympic movement. And, part of that is just being a kind of fan and interest in sport, but part of it is a massive debt of gratitude about everything. The 14-year-old me never thought I'd go to 3 Olympic Games, and the opportunities that's given me, the opportunities to see my sport as a 12-year-old in Sydney and staying up in the night to watch that was really cool. And so being part of that for the future, kind of protecting that and doing what I can to support that, and being an advocate for the Olympic movement, and at the same time as obviously playing the most important part of that, which is representing the athletes in the Olympic movement. So it's something that, and I've done quite a bit of now in other guises with Commonwealth Games Federation, Commonwealth Games England, and the PTO, and something that I've enjoyed.
I don't know. Do you think, where do you see the games in 15 years' time? Is esports likely to come in? Do you think there should just be a totally separate event for esports? Because there's an inevitable kind of entrance for that coming in, isn't there?
I think there's a real there's a balance to be struck with this. I think on one hand it's important that the Olympics keeps up with the times effectively, and you hear a lot about that being because they need to keep people watching and TV rights, but also if you're going to inspire the next generation of kind of people to be active and go out and achieve their goals and do things in the community and with each other and motivate people, it needs to be relevant. So yeah, for sure, the Olympics does need to keep up with the times, and that that's important. And I don't entirely know personally where that is yet, but I think esports in some shape or form is going to play a part in that. Esports is an enormous thing; it covers everything from effectively playing forms of computer games to there's active esports now, and you look at online cycling. So yeah, all of that. And at the same time, that needs to be balanced with keeping the integrity of the Olympic Games in place and recognizing the traditions of it. And there's a really important role in that. When you look at an event, let's take the marathon for example. if you to look at it now, you think, yeah, 2 hours of, or 2 and a bit hours of men and women racing around isn't a really super interesting event to watch per se. So why don't we shorten that or stick in some obstacles or something, but absolutely not. The value of the Olympic marathon, of the marathon, is its traditions and the fact it's this super hard event, and it's something that we can all relate to. And actually, even if you have no intention of ever running a marathon, you can go, wow, I understand how far that is. It's 26 miles. And I can understand how fast these guys are running, because we know what 12 kind of miles an hour is, and that's amazing. And then it's got this history of the event, obviously going right back to the ancient Olympics, and at the same time it's 0.2 miles because the finish line of the London Olympics, the first London Olympics, was moved because the king moved the finish line, and so all of that, like the history, and it's all part of it. And I think there's an important balance in there somewhere.
Yeah. Well, not least because two of the biggest events at the games are the 100 meters and the marathon, and they couldn't be more polar opposite in terms of how much time they take. So it's one of those things where whatever time zone you're in at various points of the day, you'll turn the telly on and be like just incredibly moved by someone's performance in something. And we've had to wait 5 years for that this time rather than 4. And it kind of, you need that sort of cycle to tick around again, don't you? And just get everybody back on board with what will be an incredible event. And the sort of the negativity around it a bit has to, which is always there. It then just gets blown out of the water by the performances, doesn't it?
Yeah, the Olympics is an awesome event for so many reasons, both in terms of a sporting event and a wider event for society and the world. And yet there is the obvious challenge of staging an Olympics this year. But I think, like you said, there's always challenges and there is always negativity in the lead up to Olympic Games, hopefully, which disappears on the first couple of days. And I've got no doubt that'll happen in Tokyo. And yeah, I think it's an incredible story that the country are willing and are putting this event on now. And I think the positivity that will flow from that, I think people being able to watch sport and people watching sport around the world will have a fantastic effect. And I think, that's one of the many reasons why it's so important to have the Olympic Games on this year. And I'm very much looking forward to watching that.
And how does this fit in with, are you in the middle of like book tour promotion type stuff as well? Obviously we're 2 weeks away from, 2 or 3 weeks away from the launch of Relentless.
1 week, it's next. We're next.
Is it?
Now, yeah. No, time
right.
flying, isn't
it? So tell us a bit about the book. And obviously I've got a few questions about some of the people you were talking to as well. But obviously its full title is like The Secrets of the Sporting Elite, right? So from talking to such a breadth of people, did anyone kind of really jog you into thinking about your own performances as well as sporting success? Like, did anyone put it in a way that made you just stop and think, I've never actually thought of it like that before?
Yeah, so the whole writing of the book was a great process, something I enjoyed immensely, from doing the interviews to kind of writing my thoughts down, to doing a lot of reading and research about it, to learning a lot more about writing, the process of doing it with my co-writer Duncan, which was that whole experience was brilliant. But I think the things that I enjoyed most was sitting down and talking to some of my heroes about sport and about what made them tick, and about the complete range of things. And there was all sorts I learned. A lot of things that I learned that were completely new. So talking to Michael Johnson about his approach to preparing for racing, and that's something that's always fascinated me. You stand on the start line of a triathlon and you think, something goes wrong, I've got 2 hours to sort this out. And But what happens if you haven't? You've only got 9 seconds. You know, the pressure. How do you cope with that build up? And so much of the work, it seems to me, must be done before the gun even goes for that. In the minutes before, making sure you're absolutely ready. And yeah, telling me about the process that he went through to make sure he was optimally prepared, right down to having the people around him and they knew what their jobs were. It's stuff that is just interesting, and you know, we all probably actually intrinsically kind of know already, but you often forget. So one of the outcomes is almost everyone said something along the lines of, I hate the label of being super talented, and the snooker player Ronnie O'Sullivan said it best, where he said, yeah, I absolutely hate the label genius effectively, because it completely undermines all the hard work that I do day in, day out. And that's a kind of a real core theme that runs through a lot of the book.
Yeah, Ronnie O'Sullivan, obviously, for those who may not know, one of the most talented snooker players in the last for the last generation, right? I mean, how much time did you have with him? Was this written during lockdown, or were you able to sit down in person with some of the guys as well?
Most of it was done before lockdown. So yeah, I sat down with him actually a couple of years ago now, and went to his mum's house, and we had a couple of hours of a chat over I think some lasagna that his mum cooked us actually, and just sat there and chatted.
Quite surreal.
Yeah, it was very surreal, and it was absolutely fantastic. But yeah, and most of the interviews I did face to face. I would have loved to have done other things actually. You know, spent a bit more time. Like I spoke to Killian Jornet, who's the ultra runner. If people don't know, he ran up and down Everest, as you know, got records of all kinds of longest and ultra runs at things like the Tour of Mont Blanc, which happens over this hundreds of kilometers and up and down all kinds of mountains. You know, I would have loved the time and being able to go for a run with someone like him and chat as part of that, but ultimately I didn't get to do that.
But and I suppose to find those common threads between someone trying to pot a black to win a world championships, or Michael Johnson, like you said, you know, the race might be over in seconds, but it's the build up to that moment. So yeah, were there common things that those conversations kept coming back to, and that you could obviously relate to as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of common themes. I think along with what we already just said, something else that I really liked was that, you know, consistency is often really key. And that was kind of said really well by some of the jockeys. So jump jockeys, and for people all over the world who are listening, that's horse racing in the UK. And there's a guy that I spoke to, a couple, one called Richard Dunwoody, who was basically the jump jockey in the 90s, the best. And then he got superseded, I think is a fair word, by someone called AP McCoy, who was basically the best jockey, won the champion jockey for 20 years in a row from the 90s into a few years ago, which is a phenomenal achievement. And that it included winning, I think he ended up with 4,500 race wins or something, you know, just incredible numbers, of which he actually lost a lot more, because you can race, sometimes you're racing 3 times a day in different parts of the country, most days of the week, incredibly intense. And he and dealing with horrific injuries from falling off horses and getting back on and racing days later. And he said ultimately it's about enjoying the wins, but not too much, and not getting too down about the losses, and just moving on quick, and being super focused. And I thought completely obviously different to what we know in triathlon, but so interesting. Selfishness is and that kind of obsession is a key theme that runs through a lot of it, and that comes off from quite a lot of people. But it's really, there's I speak to the daughter of a really famous British cyclist called Beryl Burton, who unfortunately passed away, but was kind of a pioneer of women's cycling in the 60s. And her daughter tells this amazing stories of how selfish a mum could be, you know, in a completely benign, not a negative way at all. If I was saying that about Jonny, it would come across badly, but Denise just spoke about it in almost with admiration of how single-mindedness Beryl could be and tell stories when they were going to races together. Beryl actually wouldn't let Denise get in the car with her because she needs her own daughter that much. Incredible. And I think the last, there's plenty of threads, but one of the last ones that I think almost everyone will relate to is the difference between confidence and or self-belief and how important that is. And a footballer called Michael Owen talks about that really articulately when he talks about, he says confidence at the end of the day is transient. It kind of comes and goes, and you have an injury and it goes, or you have a great game and it's sky high, and then you get some bad press and it's really low. And he says, but self-belief is kind of a static inbuilt thing that great performers have, and I just really like that way of describing it.
And for you next, obviously the ankle, what's the sort of timeline that you're giving yourself till you can get back to training the way you want to? And I mean, is it October, Kona? Is that?
Yeah, I'd say I'd love to. I'd definitely love to be in Kona. Maybe some races before that, and some of the PTA races will be a real focus. But yeah, I've got to get my ankle healthy first. I really want to focus everything I can on working for the IOC Athlete Commission role. So I'm actually kind of focus on that over the next few weeks. And then by then, I'm hoping my ankle's in a great position and I can push on and train.
And obviously the book launch as well. So there's going to be a fair bit going to be a busy man. I'm not sure where the Olympics would have fitted into all of this.
Well, obviously I've kind of upscaled some projects since I've been injured, and I'm the kind of person that needs things to do. So I wouldn't be. I'd be a bit of a nightmare if I was injured and I had absolutely nothing to focus on. These projects have been absolutely fantastic and things I'm enjoying doing. And the book's out next week, so the start first week in July, 5th of July, to order online and at all good bookshops. And I hope people enjoy it and find it interesting and of value as well.
Brilliant. Well, it's been great talking to you. Thanks ever so much for your time.
And thanks very much for having me.
Good luck with the recovery.
Thank you.
Brilliant to hear from Alistair Brownlee as he prepares for the next chapter of his career. We'll have more build up to Tokyo 2020, both on the World Triathlon podcast and across all our platforms, including a new Triathlon live show with Tommy Zaferes, Trevor Harris and Helen Jenkins talking all things Olympics with members of the USA and French high performance teams, Ryan Bolton and Benjamin Mays. Subscribe to triathlonlive.tv for that and much more as we count down the days to the individual men's and women's Olympic races on the 26th and 27th of July, and of course the debut of the mixed team relay on the 31st. Thanks for listening.